Welcome to Lived In, the interior design podcast for ordinary people living in ordinary homes. It's season 4, and we're talking about how to think differently about our homes. To kick us off, in today's episode, we're talking about where our focus needs to be as we begin the process of designing our homes. Let's get into it. Season 4, ladies and gents. That is kind of crazy if you think about it. But anyway, let's skip the chit chat. Let's get right into the episode. Here's the question for you as we start this episode. Where do you start when it comes to figuring out the design for your home? We've talked about renovations on the podcast before. We've talked about making home updates for value, but we have not talked about where to start in terms of design. So let's do a little exercise. On your phone, pull up the last image of a room that you saved or pinned or sent or screenshotted. And now I want you to ask yourself this question. Could I exist in this space? Here's what I'm finding from doing this exercise. The answer is probably no. I posted an image on Threads a few weeks ago and said that this was why we can't model our homes after what we see online, and I'll link to it, but it was an image of a study. So desk, beautiful room, wooden table, covered in books. And I just thought that's not practical. And so when we find an image that we like, we are typically drawn to the essence of the image. And that's what happened to me with that image. I liked the image, and then I immediately asked myself, could I exist in this space? So we're typically drawn to the essence of the image, the feel that it exudes, the qualities of the room, versus the actual elements in the room that make up the whole. We're distracted by the feeling, essentially. And I'm not saying that saving the image is wrong, but when we look at those images, they have to be a reference, not a map. This is important because we are saturated. We see images all the time of homes. If you're on TikTok, if you're on Instagram, if you're on Facebook, if you're on Pinterest, if you're reading through a magazine, we're constantly seeing images. And there's nothing wrong with that. The challenge is that we need to change the way that we are looking at those images. Because I'm not saying that saving the image is wrong, but it has to be a reference versus being a map. And I'm saying all of this because the problem is that when we start with the elements in the image, we end up with a result that doesn't actually work for us. So, you look at the image, you love this table, you love the books, you love the chair, you love the paint color, you implement all of it, and then you go, I can't actually live with this. And that is the microscopic approach to design. And that is the microscopic approach to design that most of us are trained to work from. And I'm using the word trained because even when we watch design videos, like the ones from Architectural Digest, what they highlight in those videos is the elements. You look at the space, you like the feel of it as a whole, and then they highlight the elements. As an example, if you've watched those open door videos, you will have heard the homeowners say things like, we sourced these beautiful wide plank floors from this barn in Pennsylvania. Or, I told my designer I really wanted something with deep, beautiful veins, and so we sourced this gorgeous marble. Again, neither of those things are wrong to do, but they aren't the good starting point that we often think that they are. Side note on open door videos, I actually watched a really interesting video about them by Kendra Gaylord. I've linked it in the show notes. And it's called I Watched 151 Celebrity House Tours and They're Full of Lies. And it is funny. In fact, at one point, Kendra talks about the lemons and limes that are featured in so many videos. It just hits a certain point in history, in the history of those videos, and everyone has lemons or limes somewhere. It's kind of hilarious. So anyway, watch it. But for me, when I watched that video, it cemented for me the fact that those videos aren't really about design. They're more about decorating. And I'm saying that because they are not a window into why the choices that were made were made. And when I say the choices, I don't mean whether or not they chose brass or black, which is the thing that they will show you. I'm talking about why they chose to have wood floors in the first place, how they decided to divide up the rooms, that kind of thing. And so then when we see images of these homes in magazines, they are almost always followed by a page that says something like, get the look, and then provides information or links to the items that were featured or lookalike items from the home. So we see the image, we love the essence, and then what do? We go and buy the items linked, hoping that by adding those items to our homes will look like they do. There are two issues with this. Number one, it's not good design. It's just copy and paste, and that is not good design. Number two, it's not suited to your unique needs. Having this kind of approach where you see an image, you copy the elements, and you hope that it's going to work for you. Having this kind of approach means that we're never focused on the thing that will yield the best design for us. We're chasing a moving target, essentially. And I'm not going to get into capitalism, but this does support capitalism in a huge way. I'm not saying we shouldn't be capitalists, not commenting politically on anything, beyond saying when we're chasing a moving target, we keep shopping and we're never satisfied. So where should we start instead? Enter the macroscopic design approach. In this design approach, we zoom out from the details like the color and the tile and the flooring, and instead we begin with needs and challenges. So when I work with clients in my advising sessions, this is where I begin. What are your needs? How do you live? Who do you live with? What kind of time and attention can you give to caring for your home? Can you do a high maintenance home, or do you need something low maintenance? This is the approach that we all need. And I'm saying that this is the approach that we need because starting here means that the details get to be details. And you get to focus on the things that really matter, like making sure your kids are able to reach the snacks and can help themselves to water, or creating enough storage for your intense skincare routine, all those items, making sure that they can fit under your sink, or creating space for key documents in your room so that you don't have paperwork pile up. This is a problem for me. Once you have the concrete parts of the design set and ready to go, then you can hone in on the essence of the space and the feel that it gives you when you are in it. This is when we start to pick things like, the type of lighting, the warmth of the light bulbs, whether or not we're going to have canned lighting, or we're going to have sconces, or we're going to have lamps, that kind of thing. Picking the paint colours that exude the same feeling as the spa, or the flooring that reminds you of the old farmhouse that you visited, if it fits your needs. Needs-based design is good design. Design that you cannot live in is just art. Choose the former, not the latter. Hey guys, Femi here. I wanted to let you know about a special opportunity I have coming up for all of you. It's coming up on March 12th, and it is a first-time homebuyers webinar. It's completely free, and you can listen to it on your lunch break. It will be happening between 12 and 1 p.m. Eastern Time on March 12th. Like I said, it's free, So you can go to www.hembyhome.com to sign up, or you can click the link in the show notes. All right, let's get back to the episode. So what does this look like in my own home? If you have been listening to the podcast for a while, you will know that we've done what I refer to as modest makeovers. And if you aren't familiar with modest makeovers, I will link the episode that explains what those are below. But we've done modest makeovers throughout our home. So the main spaces that we have tackled so far have been the primary bathroom, the kitchen, and the guest bathroom, which is also used by my kids. So it has to fulfill a number of different things, a number of different functions, and satisfy a number of different people's needs. Where we started with the design in the guest bathroom was with the fact that it's tiny and we need as much space as we can get because it's used by guests, including my parents-in-law, who are both disabled. And so we need to not have giant items in this small space. And we also still need storage. And what we started with when we moved into the home was a large vanity that had no counter space, which makes absolutely no sense. It had no counter space and it took up a large portion of the floor. And the problem with that is that, as I mentioned, I have kids who are using the bathroom and they need stools in order to reach the normal sink height. I'm not going to install a smaller sink, but I need storage and I also need more floor space. So it needed to function well and not feel claustrophobic. To solve that problem, I knew that we needed either a floating sink, the ones that are wall mounted, or a pedestal sink. That's counterintuitive in many ways because the vast majority of consumers move away from the pedestal sink to the vanity. But in our case, because we knew our needs, we knew that a vanity was just not going to work for us unless it was floating. Again, thinking about the needs and who was going to be using the space, I was advised that a wall-mounted sink or a wall-mounted vanity with kids who climb on things and lean on things was just not going to be a good idea. And so we landed on a pedestal. And in choosing a pedestal sink, obviously, we lost the storage of the vanity. So we needed a space to store, those things, hairbrushes, hairspray, toothbrushes, because all of those things, even with a sink that had more space for placing things, they can't live there. That doesn't work for me. I can't do visual clutter. And so then that led us to consider a medicine cabinet. So a mirror with storage built into it, into the wall. This is another one of those decisions that feels fairly counterintuitive because when people move into older homes, typically they remove medicine cabinets. Not us. We also reduced the size of the toilet. Now, in an ideal world, I would have gone for a toilet that has a hidden tank, which is when the tank is in the wall. But we were trying to keep this modest, and that would have required a lot of plumbing, and I didn't want to get into cutting walls and having to fix drywall and move plumbing around. And so I decided just a smaller toilet versus one that's huge, that still works for ADA needs, was what we needed best, that was going to work for us best. So that's where I started from. I did not start with, how do I want to use colour? How do I want the room to feel? That's where I went after I'd established my needs and the core things that I needed to have in the space to make it work. So then I did ask those questions. How do I want this room to feel? How do I make sure that it feels like it integrates well with the existing architecture of the home and doesn't feel like someone picked up a design from somewhere else and just plonked it in here? What things are speaking to me? Now, it's a small bathroom, like I mentioned, it's tiny, but it's not a powder room. However, I love powder rooms, or half baths, as Americans call them, that have a ton of colour in them and have character and personality. I didn't want a builder grade plain bathroom. So Things that were speaking to me at the time were stripes, and I introduced stripes, I introduced curves and mid-century lighting and elements so that when you walk into the room, it doesn't feel like a jarring experience compared to the design of the rest of the home, but it still has a ton of character. So again, like I said, I did not start with, oh, I love so-and-so's bathroom and the fact that they had this really nice toilet. Oh, I love that vanity. Oh, I love that light. I love that color. I eventually looked at those things as I scrolled through my pinned items and I looked through magazines. I eventually looked at those things, but that's not where I started. Now, when it came to our kitchen, there were a few different things that we wanted to solve. One was the fact that our fridge did not have a built-in water dispenser, and we are pretty big water drinkers here. The other was the fact that we wanted to have a countertop that was durable and felt modern, so no Formica. We also wanted to have the clean look of a single bowl sink and knew that the dual bowl sink worked best for us in terms of functionality. We wanted a garbage disposal just to make cleanup easier. And then the final thing was that the kitchen, where it's located in our house, it does not receive a ton of natural light. And so we needed to capitalize on light in that space and kind of lean light and bright. Okay, so where did this lead us? To solve all of those aforementioned issues, we went for a quartz countertop, which I do have some regrets about, but I might get into that later at the end of this episode. We went for a quartz countertop. We went for a plain white quartz countertop, which fit us in terms of the colorways because we needed something bright. We went for an undermount sink with a low bridge. It's a stone sink, not metal. So it has that clean look. It feels cozy. It fits in with the existing wood cabinets in terms of the feel. But we chose it mostly because it had a low bridge. So we got the functionality of the dual bowls, but the clean look of the single bowl sink. And then in our countertop, we made sure to cut holes for a drinking faucet. And then we installed a very affordable water filtering system so that now our kids can get water from the kitchen sink and drink it right away. We also installed the garbage disposal. Now, there are some other details I haven't gone into in terms of the type of faucet that we installed, whether or not it was a bridge faucet or a single handle faucet, or what color it was, or what metal it was, if it was matte or if it was polished, if it's a pull down or it has a sprayer, that kind of thing. I had to start with my challenges and my needs before I got to any of those, I'm not going to say superficial, but less important issues when it comes to functionality. I hope that this is making sense in resonating with you as you lean into this macroscopic approach. When you work this way, it minimizes, I won't say that it eliminates, but it definitely minimizes the likelihood that you will be dissatisfied with the end result. And it saves you money because you don't start with the wrong thing and then end up trying to go back and fix it, which will cost you a lot more money in the long run. So here is my challenge to you as we wrap up this episode. What room or what project are you ready to start working on in your home? And what are the main challenges that you currently are facing in that space and the main needs when it comes to the functionality and livability of that space? I have minor regrets about some things in my house that I've done. Really, the only one that I have a regret about is my kitchen countertop. And that is because everybody had told me that quartz doesn't stain. And it can stain. And when you have white quartz and you live with kids, that's going to be really frustrating if you are anywhere near as detail-oriented, let's say, as I am. And so I wish now that I had gone for something that was a lot more durable, like a dark granite that looked like a soapstone. But do you know what I absolutely will be repeating in any home that I live in? It's going to be the water filter and the water faucet with the dual bowl sink, with the low bridge and the garbage disposal, because those have changed the way I can live and function in my kitchen, where as a mother of 4, I spend a lot of time. So start big and then zoom in. You won't regret it.